Today's poetry discussion sent me into an existential crisis, completely and utterly devoid of anything resembling responsibility towards what it means to be human. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear in two separate playlists here on the channel. Number one, the poetry discussion playlist, but number two, the Emily Dickinson playlist. This poem we have today, it will be summer eventually, in some corners of the internet goes by a different name as it was edited prior to its first release. Its first release is now public domain for sure. This one, maybe not so much, but we will read this one here, the poem, I believe, as close as we have it to how Emily Dickinson left it, and then we will read the previous. But the real thrust of things worth talking about with this poem are, look, seasons change. The greater sort of seasons of your life will change as well. Will you be there presently in order to change those seasons with nature, or will you be left behind? The poem closest to the original text, I believe, reads as such: It will be summer eventually. Ladies with parasols, sauntering gentlemen with canes, and little girls with dolls will tint the pallid landscape as 'twere a bright bouquet. Who drifted deep in Parian, the village lies today. The lilacs bending many a year will sway the purple load. The bees will not despise the tune their forefathers have hummed. The wild rose redding in the bog, the aster on the hill, her everlasting fashions set, and covenant gentian's frill. The summer folds her miracle as women do their gown, or priests adjust the symbols when sacrament is done. Now, the way I found it was this: the springtime's pallid landscape will glow like bright bouquet, though drifted deep in Parian, the village lies today. The lilacs bending many a year with purple load will hang. The bees will not forget the tune their old forefathers sang. The rose will redden in the bog, the aster on the hill, her everlasting fashions set, and covenant gentians fill, till summer folds her miracle as women's do their gown, or priests adjust the symbols when sacrament is done. Now, the biggest difference between the two, actually, in the canon of Emily Dickinson, is right here. It will be summer eventually, a first line replaced by the springtime's pallid landscape. This comes in to the second stanza here for the actual poem from Emily Dickinson. But the reason that is, so I wanted to get into my big book of Emily Dickinson, my complete poems from her, and take another look at this poem just sort of as it is printed as opposed to how it appears on screen. And when I did so, I couldn't find the poem. So I was worried that I was just being fed garbage off the internet. It turns out kind of that is the case. I am being fed the actual edited poems from Emily Dickinson as opposed to as they were written. But here's what I want to talk about with this poem. One thing that we've talked about a lot on the channel recently, and especially as Robert Frost has started popping back up once in a while, Robert Frost is a very big proponent of this thing. On the life scale, you have a beginning, a hard middle, a soft middle, and an end. The beginning is springtime, the beginning is morning, the beginning is your youth. The hard middle is summer. The hard middle is the noontime. The hard middle is the time in life where you are supposed to be working, your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s. The meat of life. 20s, 30s, 40s maybe is the hardest sort of work that you're supposed to do. The 50s, you're supposed to be graduating to a knowledge worker type thing, but does that happen? Maybe not in the economy that we seem to be living. Then there is the quote unquote soft middle. The soft middle is the fall. The soft middle is the afternoon. This is when you are to be reaping the rewards for everything that you have done in your life, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, retirement age, these sorts of things. Then there is, of course, the winter. There is, of course, nightfall. There is, of course, your final years here. These are all things that go hand in hand. But what we have from Emily Dickinson here is this foreboding line: the summer will be here eventually. And then talking about the virtues of the spring being youth, the spring being early day. Our poet is extolling the virtues of the spring, almost hoping that it never goes away. But at the same time, what our poet is doing, what our speaker is doing, is pointing out all of these things that have changed. Will tint the pallid landscape. Will tint the landscape. Drifted deep, the lilacs bending many a year. The bees will not forget the tune their forefathers had hummed. All of these current generation ideas, all of these current generation things are hearkening back to something that had come before them. They are standing there in the spring, as Emily Dickinson has told us. The summer is soon to come, but right now it is the spring. And because it is the spring, all of these things are new and fresh. But this hasn't always been the case. It will not always be the case. All of these lilacs are pointing back to previous times. All of these bees are singing the same songs their forefathers sang. This is important to the bees, not to give that song up. But in the same way that the current spring atmosphere is celebratory of the past, we must also be, till the summer folds her miracle, as women do their gown, or priests adjust the symbols when sacrament is done. We must always be willing, able, and cognizant enough to accept the passing of the age. Will you know in your life when it is that you are supposed to soften? When you are supposed to stop going so hard and accept later life? Do you know, perhaps you are in the opposite end of things. Maybe this is the spring for you. You are eyeing down a hard-working summer. You are looking straight into the barrel of the productive life, as it were, unable to take that next step. Both of these things are prohibitive in their own way. Being unable to take that next step into summer offsets any of the success you might have. On the opposite end of things, spending too long in the summer and being afraid to transition to the fall of your life may mean that you never get to enjoy the things that you have built for yourself. I don't know that we really get a judgment from our speaker here as to which is the bigger sin. But I think that we do have enough indication from our author here, from our speaker here, that both things, missing your turn to summer and missing your turn to fall, both of these things are sins in their own way, and they are to live a life in unfortunate fashion. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week, and I hope to have you back for the next one.